What's up, everybody? It's Josh here from RSC, coming at you from the redwood forest in Mendocino County. We're actually in my son's little fort. It's a redwood grove that we hollowed out for him to have his little birthday parties in and hang out. But today, it's the home to the Grom because she needs an RSC lever. So we're going to do an RSC lever install video today and show all the ins and outs to basically setting up an RSC lever, the things that need to be paid attention to while installing an RSC lever. And I'm also going to do a pound test pull on a stock lever versus the RSC lever. The install on this bike is the same as virtually any other bike that you'll come across. I don't have a handbrake on here, so fitting it up with a handbrake is definitely going to be, on you. But as far as the general install goes with lubing and adjustment and all that stuff, we're going to cover all that today. So why don't we just get to it. So a few of the tools and supplies we'll be needing today for this install are a 5mm Allen, a 2.5mm Allen, a cable lubing device, a fuse to jump the two clutch sensor wires, a Q-tip to put a little bit of grease in the ferrule hole in the back of the lever before we insert the cable, an 8mm socket, a 10mm socket, and a couple other things that aren't laying on the seat here, but you'll see those in the video. All right, before we get too far, I actually want to do a pound test pull on the stock lever. So in order to do that, we have to measure the distance between the pivot point on the RSC to the tip where we're going to measure it, which is about 3¼ inches. You always want to measure at the same distance. Whenever you're measuring the effort needed to pull a lever, you have to measure from the same distance from the pivot to the tip of the shortest lever. So that 3¼ inches is going to be where we measure our stock lever from, which is going to be right about there. All right, so testing the stock lever at 3¼ inches. About 10 pounds of pull, about 9.79. All right, so with your clutch sensor switch, you end up with these two female clip ends. There's a couple ways that you can deal with this. I like to use a fuse to jump them. That way it keeps everything stock and OEM, just in case you ever wanted to go back to stock or sold your bike or anything of that nature. Another method is to hook the wires to a rocker switch or a toggle switch, or some guys use a dirt bike kill switch, which is a button just right there that you push. Some of the newer Gixxers and Triumphs have the clutch sensor switch integrated into the ECU, so that is actually a requirement in order to keep the bike from going into limp mode. But on the Grom and about 99% of the other motorcycles on the planet, you can simply just jump these two wires together. You can just take your fuse, press it into that female, take this one, press it into that female, and boom. Instead of twisting your wires together and kind of having to cut and splice and everything, this just makes a real simple way to take care of things. You can wrap this with a little bit of electrical tape just to kind of secure it and isolate it a little bit further from the touching any other electronics or metal objects. So a couple things I do to prepare the lever before install on the bike. You got your two ferrule hole options on the back of the lever here. The hole closest to the pivot point creates the easiest pull. The next one up creates an easier pull than stock, but not quite as easy as this bore here. This upper bore is used for hard to adjust situations or clutch stacks that might be fairly out of spec. Today we're definitely going to be using the inner hole with the Grom. So what you want to do is get your Q-tip with a little bit of grease. I use a marine grade lithium grease, and you'd want to lube that hole so that your cable ferrule will rotate smoothly inside there. One of the #1 reasons for cable failure is the ferrule binding up inside the ferrule hole and causing stress on the stainless steel strands, which they inevitably break. So lube that up and you won't have that problem. The next thing that I do is, personally, I don't use the set screw to adjust the lever in closer to the bar. So in those situations, if you're not going to be using this set screw, just pull it out. No reason to have it in there. If you are going to use it to adjust it closer to the bar, do it in small increments and adjust your cable accordingly. One other thing we want to address before we install the lever is you always want to make sure your cable's lubed up. This cable is brand spanking new, so I'm not going to lube it today. I can actually feel and see that there's lube already on it. but you want to get yourself a cable luber device such as this one that actually slides over the cable, clamps down, and then you use a product such as Tri-Flow or virtually any kind of lubricant that comes with the little straw sprayer, and you install it into your cable luber and spray it until you just see a little bit coming out of the bottom of the cable, and that'll be plenty. Alright, so one of the first steps to installing the RSC lever is we need to get this adjuster bolt adjusted all the way in as far as possible while still being lined up with the lock nut. So looks like I can just barely get to it with the lock nut there. So you want to line up your cable slot, your lock nut, and your adjuster bolt. Today with the Grom, I'm going to do a very simplistic way of inserting the cable and getting things lined up and installed. The Grom has a very light clutch pull, so I can just install the cable ferrule into the back of the lever, simply pull on it, and that will give me enough extra cable throw to actually get it to go through the slots and get it installed. In the future, I will also do another video showing different methods of installing a lever when you actually either don't have very much extra cable coming out of the end or have very heavy clutch springs. So today we're just going to install the cable in the inner hole that we lubed earlier. Get her seated in there nicely. And then we're just going to come out into our slot. I'm just going to simply pull, and with the Grom it's got a light enough clutch spring set that you can do that quite easily. So now that that's in place, you can adjust this out a little bit. Just to put a little bit of tension on the cable, and then put our RSC on the bar, get an idea where we're going to want it. That right there is looking pretty good. So we take our perch cap. You always want to put the long bolt. There's two bolts that come with your RSC, a long bolt and a short bolt. The long bolt always gets put into the top mounting hole. Short bolt in the bottom. And you also always want to tighten your RSC completely down at the top mount to eliminate that gap first. Once that gap's gone and you're snug, move to the bottom. And there's no reason to wrench down on these bolts. You just kind of want to snug them up. Just snugging them up pretty much locks it on the bar, but you don't want to lock it on so heavy that if you get in a nasty wreck it can't spin. So there she is, she's in place. Don't really have too much cable play there, so we'll go ahead and screw our adjuster in a little bit. We're actually running out of free cable with the adjuster bolt in this position. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the engine side and make an adjustment right at the engine case where there's another adjustment in the cable to free up a little bit of cable up here at the lever, which will allow us to get that perfect position on our adjuster bolt here. Now we're down here at the engine side of the clutch cable. This is your clutch cable coming in right here, this steel sleeve with the threads on the end. It's got two nuts that lock it into place. When you loosen either side and then tighten either side, it will pull this sleeve either up towards the handlebars or back towards the engine. When it's pulled up towards the handlebars, it actually takes more of the slack out of the clutch cable. So what we just did there is we actually just brought it down a hair just to add a little bit more cable to the clutch lever up top to give us that prime adjustment location in the adjuster bolt. So now that we got our adjustment on our clutch cable down at the engine side to give us a little bit of extra cable up here at the lever, I've adjusted the lever so that the cable slot is facing directly back towards the handlebar. When this slot is facing directly down the center line of the clutch perch, there is absolutely no way that that cable can touch that adjuster bolt while you're pulling in the lever. that eliminates any possibility of cable rub on your adjuster bolt. So I recommend that you make your adjustments down at the engine side to make sure that your cable adjuster has the slot facing backwards, such as this. You also want to make sure that you have just a slight bit of free play in your lever before you start to feel any engagement. An EZ Pull lever really only needs about 1/16 of an inch of free play versus a standard lever, which normally requires about 1/8 of an inch of free play. That's what most motorcycle manufacturers will suggest. So this lever has been adjusted to the point where it has just a small amount of free play before any kind of pull actually happens on the lever, and the cable slot is facing back towards the handlebar, eliminating any possibility of cable rub on the adjuster bolt. And now that that's complete, a bike like this that's going to see a little bit of dirty action, I would recommend keeping the rubber boot. Keeps any dirt and debris from getting inside, and you're ready to rip. All right, so now we're going to test the pull effort needed on the RSC. .37 pounds. All right, everybody, thank you for watching the RSC lever install video. It's time to go out and test this bad boy out and clutch some wheelies here in beautiful Mendocino County, California. As always, I thank you all for your support and becoming part of the RSC family. Be making some more videos here soon. Stay tuned, and